Got it. There we go. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello. It's good to see you all gathering in our virtual valley. Whether you're an old friend or kind of new or a visitor or someone who's tuning in after we've posted this to YouTube, you are also welcome. We see you. So during this season of gratitude, I'm just happy we can gather in some way, even though we can't be in person. This virtual room has been very valuable to a lot of people because we need our community. And in fact, 317th week together, Patty. I think that's a great accomplishment. And everybody, every one of you is welcome. You all belong here. You are powerful. You are beautiful. You're brilliant. You're brave. And you are loved. So welcome.
Thank you, Kim. That was a beautiful welcome this afternoon. And I'd also like to extend a welcome to everyone and to our children outside, which we can't see, but this particular Sunday and next Sunday are practicing for a play that they're going to perform for us on November 28th during our Stone Soup celebration. And actually, it is the Stone Soup story that the kids are going to perform for us. So it's really neat to see those beautiful little faces out there, busy trying to decide what parts they want to participate with. The Susquehanna Valley Ethical Society is a community of all walks of life that learns and grows together through shared values, doing good, and nurturing the human spirit. We are a safe and courageous place in which members can build a community of friends, find inspiration and purpose, provide moral education for their children, celebrate seasons and life events, and clarify their world views. And now Phyllis will share some announcements with us.
Sure, although you're stealing my thunder a little bit, but that's okay. We'll share. So hello and welcome again to everybody. We're so glad you're here. A few announcements today. This coming Wednesday, which is November 17th, is our monthly board meeting. Everybody is welcome to attend that. It is held via Zoom, and the Zoom link is on our webpage, which is info@Susquehanna Valley Ethical Society. Running out of steam there. So info@Susquehanna Valley Ethical Society.org. Next Sunday, November 21st, again on Zoom, we have our very own consulting ethical humanist clergy leader, Dr. J. Exodus Hooper, who will be speaking at Platform. So we look forward to that. And as Patty was saying, on Sunday, November 28th, we actually have two very important things happening. And number one, we're going to be in person. So we will not be Zoom. We will be in person at the Heater Center. Everybody attending needs to be vaccinated and have their masks on. And we're going to start a little bit earlier. We'll be starting at 1:15. And at 1:15, we're going to start with our business meeting. So that's going to include the treasurer report for the budget for the next year. And it's also going to include talking about our consulting leader program and what that means to our society. That's going to be about a half an hour. And then after that, we're going to leap right into Stone Soup. As Patty was saying, the kids are going to act out the folk story. It's a European folk story called Stone Soup. And it's part of the tradition involves telling the story where the villagers each contribute a small amount of food that they've been supporting on their own, and everybody contributes a little bit, and it ends up being able to be a big pot of soup that feeds the entire community. So it's a pretty cool thing, and I think it's pretty awesome that the kids are going to be telling that story. So this is our 6th annual Stone Soup Festival. The stone soup will be both indoors and outdoors, so make sure you have enough warm clothes. So in the spirit of the folk story, our Stone Soup Festival is about our community and how we interact and encourage each other and how we help each other. It's a time for us to pause and reflect on the abundance in our own lives, and as we host the Stone Soup Festival. Bread, cheese, and desserts can be brought in by everybody attending. And we will have a delicious hot pot of stone soup, which will be vegan friendly. And that'll be served at 2 o'clock. Folks are also encouraged to bring in some canned goods to contribute to the Heater Center. I don't know if you all know, the Heater Center has a little food pantry. And so people are encouraged to bring in some canned goods or some shelf-stable goods that can be handed out to some folks who need food. So we're encouraging that to happen on the 28th. After the meal, we have a different type of pot that'll be filled by our community. That's the thankfulness pot. It's a time where we add to the thankfulness pot the things that we are grateful for. We'll spice it up by adding something that symbolizes a fond memory, some sort of trinket or small item, and we add that to the gratefulness ingredients. And then we'll stir it all together, and our shared stories of thankfulness and happiness will nourish our community. In this time, creating happy memories and keeping tradition alive is so very, very important. It's so easy to get down. You listen to the news, you listen to what's going on around us, and it's so disheartening. So it's important for us to be thankful and to remember that there is good and there is positive things happening. So our ethical society is a family, and every person that comes to join us will really get that sense of the importance we place on being in community with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis, very much. I'm excited. Can't wait for Stone Soup Sunday.
Dear listeners, members, guests, or maybe those that are curious. In this space, as humanists, non-theists, people that are questioning, that are seeking or exploring, our community meets to deepen our sense of the meaningfulness of life, to shine light on the ideas with which we guide our choices, to give us courage to take the higher path, and to get to know one another over time, in appreciation of each one's unique and incompatible worth. And together, we work for a world where love and justice cross all borders. In this community, our statement of affirmation can be summarized in the following. We affirm the worth, dignity, and uniqueness of every human being.
Thank you, Anthony, very much.
All right, just go ahead and kick it to gear. I'm excited because we get to have Lindsay bring us into some music, and feel free to take it away. But if you do not know, Lindsay Wilson will now officially be joining us for a 3-month trial of music and really bringing us home. I'm really excited to have her on board. There's nothing like having someone who actually knows how to take music from their own experience and make it a universal experience. So I thank you so much for your presence, for your work, and we invite you to enjoy and listen to the dynamic work of Lindsay Wilson.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
All right. Well, this song, and it's just a pleasure and an honor to sing my songs for people who are fighting the good fight and embracing the humanity in all of us. That's a real big deal right now. And so this song is addressing that, and it's more or less an encouragement. It's called Marching Onward. And the chorus goes, marching, marching, marching onward, singing, singing, singing outward. Oh, I am here to sing with the chorus and to embrace all there is to endure. For we're in a war that's been around for ages, that builds us up just to tear us down. We all have doubts, doubts that make us weary. We all feel the pain that can stop us in our tracks. But we must not give in to the strength of our weakness. Only give thanks when we fight the good fight. And keep on marching, marching, marching onward. Singing, singing, singing outward. Marching, marching, marching onward. Singing, singing, singing outward. We've all seen the changes in the weather. We've all seen the change, yeah, changes in the air. One day Mother Earth will have her way with these changes that scorch our earth and sky and make us wonder why this is happening. We all have hopes though, hopes and aspirations. We all think we have time, but time is not our friend. So don't waste your time on trials and tribulations, but forgive yourself for bad choices you have made, 'cause I've made them too. And keep on marching, marching, marching onward. Singing, singing, singing outward. Marching, marching, marching onward. Singing, singing, singing outward. We are the future coming from the past, where the last will be first, first will be last. If we are strong, strong enough to stand, let us all join hands now. For we are the future coming from the past, where the last will be first, the first will be last. If we are strong, strong enough to stand, let us all join hands now. And let's have thoughts, thoughts of new beginnings. And let's have those dreams so they can be fulfilled. For I am here to sing with the choir, and to thank those who died for showing us the promised land so we can stand. Let us sing, sing for the children, for they're the reason we march on. Let's sing the song and keep on marching, marching. marching, marching onward, singing, singing, singing outward, marching, marching, marching onward, singing, singing, singing outward. Sing with me now. Marching, we're marching, marching onward, singing, singing, singing outward. Yeah, we're marching, marching, marching onward, singing, singing, singing outward. As we bravely march into the night unknown. Keep on
Oh,
marching, y'all.
yes, yes, yes. We are marching, and we're marching forward. We are singing outward. Oh, thank you so much. That just, yeah, that touches a place for me. I'm really glad that we, in this place, we definitely do our best to march forward and sing and keep singing outward. And there is no, without further ado, I want to get us moving forward by introducing our guests today. It is an honor to have with us the wonderful mentor of mine. I'm gonna try not to get emotional, because anytime I talk about Reverend David, it is a thing. It is a thing. And I just want to honor David and just to let y'all, make y'all aware that he is the senior minister of the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, and incredible writer, and who has published several books. In addition to that, he has a Master's of Divinity from Meadville Lombard Theological School, and has a PhD from the Center for Writers at the University of Southern Mississippi. If you have never met David, or if you've never seen the platforms, I do suggest that you go to the Den of Conversation and join him for, of course, several programs that he runs, particularly Bible and Beer is one of them. The other is, it's a coffee hour in the morning with David. I can't recall the title of it. So David, if you want to remind me on that one. But I am just
Coffee and Wisdom.
Yes, Coffee and Wisdom. I was like, so there's something, Coffee and Wisdom, and just incredible, incredible heart. Me and Anthony are, I'm gonna put it out here, we have been under his mentorship for almost now going on five or 4 years. I don't think we would not be who we are in our call if it was not for someone like David in solidarity for us, advocating for our humanism, advocating for our experience, even when we don't hold the years that most people think that we should. He sees the years of experience, and he sees all of those things, and he cultivates it. And so I don't think there's any better person to put for today other than talking about nurturing community and bringing the best out of ourselves, because David has done that to both me and Anthony. So I thank you so much. And now in your hearing, I do present to you the Reverend Dr. David Breeden.
You're gonna make me cry, Jay. Yeah, well, I mean, it's thanks to Reverend Dr. Jay Hooper for inviting me to speak today. It's an honor to be with people like Anthony Cruz. And yeah, one of the things that I'm working for as an advocate is, you know, a day when old white men with white hair have to be the gatekeepers for for truth and light in this darn country. Come on, people. And we're going to keep marching until that's different, Lindsay. And thanks for helping us march forward in that way. I want to die living in a different world than I was born into, because I was born in a patriarchal white supremacy world, and it's just wrong. And thank you all for working on this. I want to consider nurturing community and bringing in the best of ourselves. You know, we need to think more about the basic kind of things that we just don't even think about sometimes. And so, for example, I'm going to share with you today some from a book that's getting some attention, just came out last week, The Dawn of Everything, A New History of Humanity, David Graeber and David Wingro. You've probably seen there's some cool things, New York Times reviews and that kind of thing. They did an article a couple of weeks ago. David Graeber is now dead. He died in early 50s. And he was one of the founders of the Occupy movement. This is an important book to talk about community, I think, and to really conceptualize what we're talking about when we say we want to change things into something else. So, I mean, think about your familiar story, and some of us studied it in school. There's this thing called the Fertile Crescent, right? Mesopotamia. And suddenly some farming groups start gathering together and they start farming. And then by golly, then suddenly they stop being hunters and gatherers, right? And they do this thing, the architecture, writing, math, differentiation of labor. You got kings, you got priests, you got soldiers, you got farmers, and then we're going to call it civilization. And that's how it happened, right? But wait, that was only about 200,000 years after people started thinking about this stuff. What were they doing the other 200,000 years? And that's, I think, an important question, because, I guess I didn't think much about it. But yeah, it's time we do think about these questions. So I want to read a little bit from the book for you. They say, for a long time, the archaeological evidence from Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, Mesoamerica, and elsewhere did appear to confirm this, that is, inequality, right? If you put enough people in one place, the evidence seemed to show that they would start dividing themselves into social classes. You could see the inequality emerge in the archaeological record with the appearance of temples and palaces presided over by rulers and their elite kinsmen, and storehouses and workshops run by administrators and overseers. Civilization seemed to come as a package. It meant misery and suffering for those who would inevitably be reduced to serfs and slaves and debtors. But it also allowed for the possibility of art and technology and science, end quote. That's the story we've been told. And it's a big fat lie. And if you don't believe me, you can start reading the 700 pages. They look at this old narrative of humanity, and they look at such words as progress, civilization. These things are loaded, and they're used as clubs to beat people. There are glaring assumptions built into the traditional Euro-American narrative. For example, one glaring assumption is that hunter-gatherers were not serious political philosophers. You know what? People are all serious political philosophers. That's the thing. We have assumed a long time that they simply fell into one situation and then another, and then this agricultural thing in Mesoamerica or maybe Mesopotamia just happened, accidentally. Well, no. Why would that? Why would it be that way? And that's one of the questions they keep asking. Why would it be that way? And I think it's interesting. Another assumption that they look at is that large gatherings of people had to be largely dependent on agriculture. That is not the case if you look at the archaeological record. There's also the assumption that larger gatherings of people, what we call cities, had to depend on those hierarchical structures and things like police. The authors describe, for example, Talyanki, Ukraine. I can put that in the chat later. It wasn't discovered until the 1970s, so it was long after I was in high school, that's for sure. And it was the largest Neolithic settlement in Europe. And it dates from 3800 before the Common Era, 5,000, 6,000 years ago, and previous to the settlements in Mesopotamia. Talinki was approximately 15,000 residents at its peak. Nearly 3,000 different structures existed, and it was built in concentric circles out from, guess what? A green space in the middle, not a big temple, not a prison, it was a green space in the middle and then circulated out. A little more from the book. Why do we assume that people who have figured out a way for a large population to govern and support itself without temples, palaces, and military fortifications, that is, without overt displays of arrogance and cruelty, are somehow less complex than those who have not? That's an interesting question, isn't it? But back to what they say. Why would we hesitate to dignify such a place with the name of city? The mega sites of Ukraine and adjoining regions were inhabited from roughly 4100 to 3300 BCE, which is a considerably longer period of time than most subsequent urban settlements. Eventually, they were abandoned. We still don't know why. What they offer us in the meantime is a significant way to look at the proof for a higher egalitarian society and at an urban scale. People, end quote, people were doing this a long time ago. So there are so many assumptions that we just make. Some we got taught in high school, and some we just, because, human history is so big, it's just really, it's hard to think about it. But their lesson is very clear, I think. Trust your intuition. Trust your adaptability, right? You, human, know how to build community. And when we look outside of Euro-American assumptions and let go of the status quo, there's been a lot of human intelligence invested over a long time. And when we get caught up in this it's got to be this way. The first question is, why does it got to be this way? Why? It's difficult to comprehend for those of us who've grown up surrounded by monotheisms as well. Let's think about that. But, many of the ancient peoples, most of the ancient peoples, did not live in monotheistic societies. They had gods that explained the origins of things, like, why is there a mosquito? Why does water run downhill? Why is there a river? It was those kinds of things. It wasn't do this and don't do that. That's really a monotheistic idea. And of course, it's also after those Mesopotamian hierarchical things. And so why do we believe that that has to be the case? I think it's a very good question to ask ourselves. The ancient myths explained why things happened, but it also taught not, don't do this, but it taught how to react to the earth itself, how to consider and treat the sacred, and how to enter into the sacred places. That's what the ancient myths actually tell us, not this other stuff that really gets mixed in with monotheism. One speculation of why philosophy did spring up around the Mediterranean, and I put it that way, I don't say Greece, it's around the Mediterranean. Again, think for a moment, how much is Greece actually in Europe? We don't think of Greece that way today. Why was it Europe for a few years and then it goes all north in Northern Europe? That doesn't make sense. Again, it's an assumption. But the people around the Mediterranean, it is speculated, began to think about this ethics stuff because their gods didn't tell people what to do ethically. I mean, think about the Greek gods. Do you really want to act like Zeus? What would Zeus do? It's not going to get you very far unless you can shoot, thunderbolts out your fingertips. If you can't do that, Zeus doesn't have a lot to tell you about how to act in the world, right? So philosophers began to look at ways that they could dead reckon human ethics without any gods telling them what to do. And then how do you do that? Well, the Stoics, for example, who were in the Turkey, Greece, Mediterranean area, they started saying, what are we? And again, we Westerners often think of this wrongly, I think. Most of the human world knows that actually we are social creatures. That is our essence. We're not lone rangers, out there on the prairie, riding around killing others or vigilante justice or anything like that. We are social animals. And so what the Stoics and many others ask is, what would a social animal do? How would they act? And then they started figuring out ethics based on how to be a social animal, right? Instead of what God told them to do. I don't know, being kind to others, having some compassion on others, Again, this book, one of the things they point out is, we do have skeletons out there. We don't know how, which one is first and that kind of thing. But yeah, we talk about this guy got clubbed in the head, that guy got shot with an arrow. No, the oldest human skeletons show that they were people who had genetic defects, for example, or broke a leg, and they were taken care of. That's the oldest human example. Not violence, but care. And that's how we know that they were thinking about ethics, right? They weren't just killing each other. Again, we want to think that in some way if we want to build this idea of civilization, but it just can't be true. So what's bad for a social animal to do? Well, lying, cheating, right? Stealing, hoarding, those are the bad ideas. And you can really dead reckon an ethics for how social animals should act without getting involved in any gods telling you anything. What we need to think about today too is pro-social behaviors. How do we act in such a way to build the community and also to care for and see all of our people? That should be perhaps the way we're going about creating a society, right? Well, another thing, and I think this is important for us to think about as humanists, is, you're going to see if you start reading magazines online, whatever. Forbes has one that I just pulled out. I just Googled it. Science says religion is good for your health. I know you've seen that out there, that science says religion is good for your health. Well, again, this is motivated thinking, right? It's not the religion that is particular religion that's good for your health. It's the things you do when you act within congregational religions that's good for your health, right? It's getting up in the morning, cleaning yourself up a little bit. It's having someplace to go that's different, that says to you, wait a minute, let's think a moment. Let's think about, what a jerk I was yesterday, and I'm going to make a little idea here. Maybe I'm going to be a little bit better today. Those are the things. And then, of course, I always say it normalizes things. In my congregation, I always say when someone comes home with that absolute, utter tragic diagnosis, you have cancer of, you know what? Someone in that congregation has had that. Someone else. They've had a mother who had it. They have a kid who had it. They've had it themselves. When we gather together, we can say, I lived through that, and this is how I did it, and I'll help you, right? And let's work on that together. It normalizes human things that sound just totally awe-inspiringly terrible when the doctor says, oh, you got colon cancer. And then they send you home, right? Yeah, no, we can talk, and we can talk about ways that this is part of human life, and we can normalize it with each other. People have always been problematic. I mean, I'm not one who to say that congregations can be perfect, but gathering together is good for our health. I really like the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten. If you've heard of him, he lived at 1350s BCE, long time ago. And here's a quote from him. He says, "True wisdom is less presuming than folly. The wise doubt often and change their minds. Fools are obstinate and never doubt. They know everything except their own ignorance." So that's somebody from 5,000 years ago who ruled a mighty kingdom, and they built pyramids and stuff like that. And guess what? People have sort of always been the same, right? And if we can be the kind of people who will listen when we're wrong and try to do something else, and hear, wow, I didn't think of that, right? I don't know if you've ever done any research on First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, but where I'm the minister, but it has an interesting history. We were the first congregation to call ourselves humanist. Now, ethical culture societies were doing humanism before that, but they weren't calling it humanism, right? So we were the first to call ourselves humanists, and this word kind of stuck. And it comes from a guy by the name of John Dietrich, who was called as a minister there in 1916. And he'd been defrocked as a conventional Christian minister, condemned for heresy. He left and became a Unitarian. And he was reading British magazines that had this idea called humanism. And so he decided to call himself a humanist. And when he came to interview for the job here in Minneapolis, he said, people, I'm a humanist, and they said, oh, what's that, right? Because they had been a Darwin reading group, actually, rather than a church, for most of their existence, all the way back in the 1870s. So when he said this, he said, wow, they said, wow, let's try to do that, and we'll call ourselves humanists. And they voted him as the minister. And I say, if they hadn't done that, yeah, he probably would have become a college professor. But this humanism stuff, he would have been a crank, right? Just a crazy guy, a crazy professor on the ivory tower. But they said, come on in, let's explore this. And we've been doing that since 1916. And we can keep changing and getting better and hearing when we're wrong, I hope, right? He said this when he was called, and when he came to the pulpit, he said that we are going to change our discourse from the traditional to the scientific, from the theological to the historical, from the supernatural to the natural. And then he says this, I see already the coming of a day when people shall come to a church not for what they receive, but for what they give. Not the company of the saints, not the assembly of the converted, not the congregation of the righteous, but a great host of servants of the common good, of fighters for the good fight for justice, righteousness, truth. This is the new church of the new era, he said. And that's what we've been trying to do ever since. We fail in a lot of ways, but we're going to keep listening to the Pharaoh and hearing otherwise, I hope, because the whole idea of humanism from his viewpoint is that we gather together to rub up against each other, right? And change each other's minds and discover things and become new ways, and think in new ways. And that's how we do it. He said that a spiritual unity underlies the common good, right? It's the spiritual in us that really feeds us in this way. And of course, I mean, he had no access to books like this. That they still were talking about that, Mesopotamian civilization stuff and white supremacist ideas. But he intuitively understood that we together do make more sense than that story of subjugation, right? And I really believe that's the essence of humanism and free thought in general. Epictetus, he was a Greek philosopher, but he was thinking about this too. And he said, do not give assent either to what is false or to what's unclear. That sounds like pretty good advice, doesn't it? You can figure out an ethics from there. Act only in ways that serve the human community, living things, and the planet. And yes, he was saying that at 300 years BCE, right? Joyfully greet that which is, meaning what you can see, greet joyfully what is, right? And I think that that's how, maybe we can continue to re-envision humanism and free thinking from this. I got, y'all know already that how smart Jay is, but I learned something every time I talk with Jay. Yeah, Anthony's smart too, believe me. But I talk to Jay more, and Jay's got this great idea about the difference between enlightenment and we often fall into this age of reason, enlightenment, and endarkenment, right? Enlightenment, endarkenment, and I love that. We tend to lean too heavily on what we see as enlightenment values, logic, reason, professionalism, progressive growth forever, and all of that kind of stuff. But what we have to do, Jay will tell you, and I say amen, amen, is to look at the endarkenment, look at the shadow side of all of that, right? What does that do to us? What are the limitations of professionalism? What are we looking at in terms of a planet that's burning down as we speak? There's been some mistakes. We can't talk about that march of progress anymore. It just isn't true. We gotta love the light, but we can't ignore the shadow. That's always the problem. It's a narcissistic hubris, that underlies these enlightenment values. This book says, you know what? And this is what I love most about this book. And I haven't read it all yet, so I'll get back to you and review it. But they say, wait a minute, the Enlightenment. Okay, wait a minute. The Europeans at that time had absolutely no idea of inequality whatsoever. They didn't, because kings were told everybody what to do in Europe. The Pope told everyone what to do in Europe. There wasn't any equality. Everybody was, down the ladder. They said, where that comes from? It comes from the French, who began to talk to the Indians, the natives that are now in Canada. And the first thing they said to the French is, you guys, your life is really miserable. You're suffering here. We can see it. And, we really feel sorry for you. And they were the ones who began to talk about equality, human equality, saying, here we're equal. Nobody listens to the chief if he doesn't have a good idea. We don't have to. He's not telling us what to do. We're all equal. And you know what? Although, most of these societies were somehow patriarchal, but they were also matrilineal, right? How much of that have we stomped out? We just pretend that didn't happen. That's about 300 years of European history, actually, right? But we just ignore it. When was the last time that we read a book on African philosophy? But you know what? They are out there. It's not, it's not a mystery. It's just that we forget that, because we get so caught up in these things that we think. A book that, I love this book, but a book that I ordered, and I don't have it yet, but I've been reading great things about it. We heard about it, Jay and Anthony and I the other day when we were doing a session called Undrowned. Have you run into that? I can put this in the Undrowned, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals. Undrowned, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Animals. It's by Alexis Pauline Gumbs, Gumbs. And I'm going to finish this way. She writes this: what is the solidarity, sistering, ancestral imperative called for at this moment, where US colonial territories are in active refusal? What does it look like to be intolerant of colonialism? What life would spring up? What recovery is possible if the colonial force actually shuts down? I'm asking for a sister of mine, she says, wherever she is now. 3 million years ago, she taught me something about us. I haven't forgotten. We deserve to be free. And one little last quote from her, since I think it's so good. What do we need to remember that will push back against the forgetting encouraged by consumer culture and linear time? What can we remember that will surround us in oceans of history and potential, and how? Those are the questions, this is me talking, that I think hold the future if humanity has one. And I think that those questions are answered in community when we're hearing as many people as we can, because that's what we've always done. It's just a European shutdown that told us that we can't think for ourselves. And we can, but we need to be thinking together. That's all I got.
Wow. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much. I did put that book into the chat.
Excellent.
And so definitely feel free to read Alexis Pauline Gumbs, a dear associate of mine and my family, who was in Durham, North Carolina, and right in the kind of Tri-City area of North Carolina. And she does amazing work, constantly always writing, sitting and meditating in deep thought. I do recommend you follow her on Instagram too, to kind of keep track of what her work is about. And once again, I just want to thank David for bringing us this wonderful thought. We will have, David, if you don't mind sticking with us, we'd love to, of course, have a little 15-minute discussion after. I'm going to let us go into our closing words, and I'm going to allow for us to, for those who want to stick around to, have further discussion with David, so that we can get a little deeper. That's important. So I'll turn this portion over to Patty, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Jay. Darlene's thumbs up. I think we're looking forward to having some discussion afterwards. And we do have some closing words with Anthony.
Dear community, listeners, as we unearth from the depths of the deserts aquifers of life that enter into our bodies to provide sustenance, life, and strength, let us learn from one another as we move, sing, and enter into new ways of being, thinking, and belonging. As we flourish in liberation, let us emerge and sustain one another one day at a time. Go out, reach out, and love across difference, with the knowing that you are part of communities of purpose and care.